New this hour, we have just learned a junior Navy sailor tried but was not able to access the medical records of President Biden from a military medical database. The U.S. Navy confirms the sailor attempted to do so 3 times in February. We're told the Navy disciplined the sailor after an investigation into the attempted breach ended in late April.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the U.S. Navy sailor who tried to access Joe Biden's medical records and I presume release them to the public to tell us what many of us already know. Now, before I go too deep into it and get into the whole Parkinsons doctor visiting the White House 8 times and how the media are trying to spin this or how they're not trying to spin it, before we get into that, I just want to say to the sailor, whoever you are, I understand why you tried to do what you did. I'm not condoning it if the feds are listening. I would never say to anybody, go access secret medical records and get yourself locked up to make big rocks to little rocks. I would never say that. However, I do understand why he would try to do something like this, because you're putting this man out there in the public. Every day we see him and we see that something is wrong. The media, for the longest time, for years, has tried to gaslight us into thinking that he's okay. You see this man barely able to move, shuffling around, forgetting words, just looking very, very old and frail. We see it with our own 2 eyes. We've seen it in our own family with people that have had Parkinsons, Alzheimer's, dementia. People, we've seen this. We know what this is. We're not a dumb people, but the media will try to gaslight us. So I understand why you tried to do what you did. But don't risk your freedom over something that's so obvious like this, all right? Not only do we see this guy behave in a certain way out there in public, we also know that the Parkinsons expert, not just a neurologist, a Parkinsons expert visited the White House 8 times. Now, the media might try to say, oh, the Parkinsons expert was there for other patients and not Joe Biden. Huh? So the guy we can obviously see has some kind of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, or a combination of all 3. That guy that we see having this happen, that guy that probably can't leave the White House and go somewhere else and has got to have house calls, he's not the guy that you coming to see. Be for real. Now, before I go any further and get any more triggered, let's get into a news clip here about the Parkinson's expert. And let's get a little bit more context. And of course, I will link to the video in the description. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board certified neurologist. He sees patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent.
Now, let's pause for a second. This guy's an actual doctor, an actual brain doctor. And he's been around for a long time, critically acclaimed, I guess you would say, award-winning maybe. This is somebody that's really an expert in their field. So I don't want anybody to say, oh, ABO, you're not a brain doctor. How can you diagnose this man? Let's hear from the experts and see what they say. Ain't that what they say? Trust the science, trust the experts, or does that only work in certain situations?
Transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the
yeah,
room
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks, have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah. I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, oh, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be?
No. And you know what? I want to talk about this. I'm an actual stutterer. There was a period of time in my life I couldn't even get my own name out. I think Steve Harvey is also a stutterer. There's quite a few of us out there that do public speaking and things like this because we've been able to overcome it. And what we do to overcome the stutter is to constantly practice speaking and to be focused on saying our words properly. That does not make us do what Joe Biden is doing, which is completely forgetting words, looking lost, being at the debate with his mouth open, like, that's not what a stutter does. And Biden is a lifelong stutterer. So if this was an issue, it would have popped up before age 81. You understand? You would have seen this kind of thing previously, but previously Biden was always a pretty good speaker. Not that I think what he says is good, but as far as his speaking, it was always good up until his late years when there's clear, as the doctor said, brain degeneration, neurodegeneration. Your brain is not functioning as it used to because there's issues going on that are making your thoughts not really connect. But I digress.
Part of that too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up.
His gait is like a plastic, like a toy soldier. You know, that the rigidity, that right there, that's a key issue as well.
Ordotically, you notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice. They said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
So look, we have some other things: Parkinson's disease symptoms, rigidity, tremor, slow movement, masked face, soft or low voice. I mean, I'm seeing those. The rigidity, definitely your gait, you looking stiff as a board, barely able to move. Tremor, his hands might be like this. Slow movement, obviously he's walking slow as a turtle. Yeah, the mask, I'm not quite sure what that is, masked face, but the soft or low voice, he has that as well.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arm.
What is he doing right here?
And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, "Hey, President Biden," he wouldn't go like this. So, yeah.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
Right.
It's just like, this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who
yeah, it's like, come on, man, we see what's going on. And I think the media were trying to like defend Biden here. It's like, oh, it's kind of hard to diagnose. You've never met him. But this guy sees it all the time. And at a certain point, when you start to see the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, you see it again in somebody else. It's like, okay, well, that's what it is. I'm seeing the exact same things in 1,000 other people throughout the years, maybe 10,000 people throughout the years.
Gone through issues, neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, masked faces, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test,
yeah,
they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you, if you had, and I know you have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that, I mean, I know you're just
great question.
Sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out for any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's.
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded mean the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are
so
medical
you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House and are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person?
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, you know, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
Because that was the excuse. They were trying to say, well, the doctor, the Parkinson's expert, was not there for Biden. He was there for other people. It's like, well, if Biden is clearly presenting the symptoms of Parkinson's and you have a disease, that disease expert visited the White House 8 times, logic would say that the doctor is there for Joe Biden. Why would a Parkinson's expert go to the White House specifically? Why couldn't a young guard or whoever go to a hospital and get seen there? Why at the White House specifically?
And then, a lot of people have called for a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding retrieval doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonisms. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is, when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
What do you do in this test?
I agree 100%. And there's more to the video, but I won't play the full thing because of time. But I'll link to it, of course, in the box. So shout out to the doctor. Shout out to the experts. Are we going to believe the experts here or no? Are you going to believe what you see? What we see is exactly what he's talking about. And he's a doctor just putting it all together and giving us the proper context for it. But as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to everybody that sees the obvious. Shout out to the doctors that are honest and are going on television and saying what's really going on. And I think at this point, the media has pretty much turned their back on Biden, because in previous months, even definitely previous years, you would not be allowed to go on TV and say a certain thing. They would just cut your mic. They kick you out. They would tar and feather you. They discredit you. They gaslight the public and say that the person don't know what they're talking about. They're not really an expert. They did not diagnose this man directly. That's what they would say. But now the cat's out the bag. We see what's going on. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on what's happening with Joe Biden? You think he has Parkinson's or some of these symptoms? How about the sailor that did what he did? Do you understand that? I understand exactly why the sailor did what he did. I'm not trying to say I endorse it or I condone it, but I understand there's no need to do anything like that, because everybody with a brain can see what's going on. We don't need the documents to back it up. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.